Keep the comments coming in. Hello and welcome to our webinar on lesson planning and delivery. This session is specifically for Inspire Science teachers from grades 9 through 12. Just gonna move this over. And this series builds up on the introductory sessions that we did back in August and September to get you acquainted with the program and the online platform. And now we're going to delve a little deeper into the course delivery, curriculum mapping, and take you through a model lesson. This is a webinar that was requested by quite a few teachers, and so we hope that this helps answer a lot of your questions. I will be your moderator for this session, along with Nasir Al-Faiz, who should be joining us in a few moments. And your trainer for this session is Jason Marshall. A lot of you probably already are familiar with him. He's a senior curriculum consultant, and he's joining us from the US. A couple of housekeeping slides for Zoom. I'm sure we're all quite familiar with and comfortable with how Zoom works. But just make sure that your audio is connected so you can hear everything fine. Turn off any high bandwidth consuming apps. And Q&A will be towards the end. We'll try and make sure that we give at least 10 to 15 minutes. So note down your questions, put them down in the chat. I'll make a note of it and bring them up during the last 10 or 15 minutes. And as always, the recording and certificates will be emailed to all the attendees in an email within, I think, a week or two of the webinar. So that's pretty much it from my side. Jason, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then you can take over.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, let me hide some stuff here and we'll get started here. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hamad, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Marshall. This is Inspire Science, and we're gonna dig a little bit deeper and maybe go into some areas that you haven't seen in the Inspire Science program, or maybe have underutilized, at least to this point. And we'll cover as much ground as we can in a short amount of time. So some things that involving the lesson plan, how to find things, how to assign things, how to get those back from the students, and some day-to-day lesson activities that maybe you've done along the way, but maybe many of you haven't already. So we'll try to dig a little bit deeper. Along the way, I'll have screens that say time to chat. And that's where I'd like for you to share with you your experience with Inspire Science. And I'll have some specific questions for you to answer, like how have you used this in your classroom? It's one thing for me to share some best practices. It's another thing to hear it from your peers. I think that's where we get the most out of sessions like this. So we'll try to get the most out of this in a short amount of time. And if we need to follow up with another one with some other specific goals in mind, we can sure do that. We're here to help you. So I'm going to walk through Inspire Science with physical science and walk through a lesson. And the Inspire Science program, it's important to know, it's so dependent on a digital companion. It's so important for that interaction to take place between students digitally. Do students have a student edition? Absolutely. Teachers have a teacher's edition, but that digital back and forth is really integral to maximizing the success of Inspire Science. I'm going to share a couple key ways in which we do that in the program. So that print, that digital, that hybrid experience is key to Inspire Science. One of the things that you'll find in Inspire Science along the way, and you've discovered them as you've taught them, things like virtual labs and simulations, phenomena videos. This interactive ebook that you see down here to the right is integral to the success of a daily lesson. And I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into this than maybe we have before. As is LearnSmart on the left, it's key to maximizing and unlocking the potential of Inspire Science. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that today. Many of you have, and hopefully many of you will use the app. There is an app experience with Inspire Science. I don't know about you, but every student I see these days has a phone somewhere close by, or at least they want one. The Inspire Science program can be downloaded onto their device for offline use. And now that book, that physical science book, that biology book, that chemistry book can be accessed on that phone, as can LearnSmart, okay? So let's walk through a lesson and lesson planning. So I'm looking at the high school experience, whether you teach chemistry, physical science, biology. This is the format that the lesson is structured. These are how the units, modules, and lessons are structured, and the activities you can expect to find within it. So at the unit level, you have a specific set of tools. You have this encounter the phenomena, a STEM module project launch, and this formative assessment probe. When you get to the module level, you have a phenomena opener and claim, evidence, and reasoning. And then when you get into the lesson, you have the 5E lesson model. When you exit a lesson, or when you get to the end of all lessons, you have some experiences that wrap up the module, like revisiting the phenomena and revisiting the claim, evidence, reasoning, and revisiting that STEM project. That all takes place at the end of the module. And then at the end of the unit, you have that STEM module project, should you choose to use it and complete it. So what does that look like on the page? As you've seen, we have that unit opener. Why can dry ice go directly from a solid to a gas? Encounter phenomena. And there's a driving question storyboard that supports it. Now, this driving question storyboard, let's see where that's found digitally. It's found in your teacher's edition. So if you look at the teacher's edition at the beginning of a unit, and for planning purposes, you have this 2-page spread. Now, every unit has one. I'm in Unit 2 Energy. And in this 2-page spread, let me look at the first page. I have a formative assessment probe available to me. It's referenced here in the teacher's edition. And below this formative assessment probe, it's saying the pathway students are going to understand or be able to answer this question over time. And what little questions are going to be answered each and every lesson along the way. On the second page of this 2-page spread, there is this driving question storyboard. Okay, this driving question storyboard is a best practice that's starting to work its way across at least the states, in which you post the overarching question for the unit, and then the little smaller questions that students must be able to answer in order to be able to understand the larger question. You post it right up there on your dry erase board, on your bulletin board. Just post these questions on your board, and then give students sticky notes. And then they ask questions along the way, the questions they have about phenomena, or just things that they're curious about. And then you seek to come to answers to these questions over the course of the lesson. This 2-page spread is something that you'll find at the beginning of each and every unit of Inspire Science. Now, where are these tools supported when you're a teacher planning for Unit 2 Energy? Well, let's take a look. I'm in my Inspire Science teacher platform, and I'm going to go to my course view. When I go to the course view, I'm going to go to that unit on energy. Let's take a look at it. So here's that unit in energy. When I click on this area, Unit 2 Energy, I have those resources that are aligned to the unit resources found in the teacher's edition and the student edition. So we saw probes, we saw STEM projects in that schematic. So that's exactly what I'm going to find here. I'm going to find in my learning resources, I'm going to see that STEM project. So here's that STEM project I could choose to introduce or implement with my students. It's only found here at the unit level. I'm not going to find it at a module level. This one's called Design a Power Bank for Storing Electrical Power. Now, STEM projects are performance-oriented, performance-based assessments that many times we have time to utilize. Sometimes we feel as though we've run out of time and we don't have time to implement them as part of our instruction. But know that this STEM project is awaiting for you. And it's found at the beginning of our unit. In each and every STEM projects, ask students to integrate a little bit of engineering. So you'll see a little bit of that engineering design process integrated into each one of these STEM projects, okay? And I'm finding this at the unit level. I'm also gonna find the probe at the unit level. And many of you may have used this experience called the probe. Many of you may not have. So let's see what it means or what it's all about. The probe is designed to uncover misconceptions and get an idea of what students might be thinking going into the lesson. Probes can also be a discussion starter and even turn into an investigation. So it starts with a scenario that students have to consider. And I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. Does an iceberg or boiling water have more energy? And there will typically be answer choices that students have. For students, we're talking about water energy, and this is what they said. Timon thinks, I think a cup of boiling water has more energy than an iceberg. Louisa thinks, I think an iceberg has more energy than a cup of boiling water. Ray says, I think a cup of boiling water and an iceberg have the same amount of energy. And Sura thinks a cup of boiling water has energy, but the iceberg does not have energy. Who do you agree with most and why? Now, the answers in these probe experiences might be all over the place. The answer is not necessarily the most important part. It's always this explanation. It's here where you're going to uncover student preconceptions and misconceptions, get an idea of what your students are thinking going into the unit, have a good discussion about students' prior knowledge, and create a desire to know. Okay, so students are going to kind of seek to understand over the course of the lesson. Learning resources are resources that we give to students. And for us as a teacher, those will always be found in our planning resources. So here's the answer key to that probe we just saw. And here's the teacher answer key to the unit resource we just saw. So at the unit level, we have these specific resources that are only found at the unit level for planning purposes. And a lot of times they get lost because I think a lot of teachers go directly into the modules or directly into the lesson, and they forget the resources found at the unit level. And so that's where we've just been. Resources for planning purposes at the beginning of the unit. Now, many teachers over the last 20 months that have used Inspire Science have done this driving question storyboard instead of in class on a Padlet or other sort of sharing tool found online. So these are great tools to use for Padlet. And as we come back into our classrooms, think about continuing to use them on a Padlet. I think they're great for students to share their ideas. They can do that in class, they can do it out of class, okay? At the unit level in the Teacher's Edition will be a storyline. It's the pathway for student understanding this phenomena over time. And along the way, students are gonna get a little bit of the piece of the puzzle, each and every lesson along the way. When we get into the module opener, or still here at the unit level, is that STEM project. We took a little look at it just a little bit ago. In the Teacher's Edition, there's a module planner. Now, if you don't teach necessary three-dimensional science in your classroom, a lot of this color coding may not really apply to you. But if you are integrating the 3 dimensions, and by the 3 dimensions, I mean the disciplinary core ideas, the science and engineering practices, and the cross-cutting concepts, this color coding is built to support the 3 dimensions. Blue represents the skill or science and engineering practices students are going to encounter in this module or lesson. Orange are the core ideas. That's the main ideas, the content, the way we're used to thinking of them. And the green is the cross-cutting concepts. These are the themes that apply to all disciplines. The way I like to think about the 3 dimensions are the disciplinary core ideas are what scientists and engineers know. The science and engineering practices are what scientists and engineers do. And the cross-cutting concepts are how scientists and engineers think. What scientists and engineers know, what they do, and how they think. And you'll see this color coding throughout Inspire Science. And I think it'll help make sense when planning for lessons. Questions to integrate the cross-cutting concepts are found along the way. And maybe some of you have used those already. Now we're at the beginning of a module. And every module begins with that phenomena opener, right? And every module has a phenomena opener video. It says go online to see that phenomena in action. Now I happen to have that phenomena opener for this particular module open. It's classifications and states of matter. And I'm gonna go ahead and play it. Just a snippet of it. This phenomena video is designed to spark curiosity and get students thinking and introduce each and every module. Each and every module will begin in this way. And that's a phenomena video. You'll also see claim, evidence, and reasoning here. So if it's found, if the phenomena video is found here at the Teacher's Edition and the claim, evidence, and reasoning is found here at the module level in the Teacher's Edition, that's exactly where it's going to be found online. So if I go to that same module online, let's say module 15, matter, I have an additional set of file folders specific to this module for planning. And so integral to understanding or unlocking the potential of Inspire Science is knowing where stuff is. So we saw specific resources found at the unit level. Now we have specific resources found at the module level. Planning and presentation resources, my teacher's edition, my answer keys. When I go to the learning resources, I have my student edition in Spanish. I have 2 companion pieces, the reading essentials and the science notebook. We'll talk more about those here in just a little bit. And here's that phenomena opener. Okay, here's that phenomena video we just took a look at. Now, as a teacher, I could plan a lesson and just open this window up, expanded by clicking on this little icon. This is a really helpful tool in Inspire Science. It allows you to open it up in another window. Maybe some of you have discovered that already. Maybe some of you haven't. And now I have it in a separate window. And maybe this is how we do it. Have students watch it together in class. All together, let's watch this video to introduce this module, okay? That's one way to do a lesson with Inspire Science and use that phenomena video. The other way is to launch it through the launch presentation tool. Now, some of you have gotten to use this so far. Others may not have used this so far. So let's take a quick look at it. We may not have had a chance to look at it in a previous training. So what this does is this opens up your presentation into a series of slides. So here in the module opener, I'm only going to have that module opener. Okay, I only have that module opener slide, and along with some other slides that I could choose to activate. So let's say I wanted to activate the science notebook answer key so we can grade it together. And maybe I want to activate this reading essentials answer key so we can read it together or answer together. And maybe I want to bring these to the front of the slide deck. So now when I look at my presentation, I have a presentation that's been customized for me, starting with that answer key that I activated. If I go to my next resource, I have that notebook that I've activated. And this may be how I want to present my lesson. If I open up my tray here, and then the next slide that I'm going to see here is my phenomena video. Okay, so now it's in my presentation. I launched it as part of that lesson presentation tool, and here it is. So resources as far as for lesson planning and presentation can be launched individually right here, or they can be launched as part of a larger presentation tool that I can edit and customize, okay? Right now, I only have a couple resources activated, those 2 answer keys and that phenomena video. Maybe I want to activate claim evidence and reasoning. Or maybe I want to activate, let's go see what else is here. Maybe I want to activate, how about this test, okay? So I can choose to activate any one of these resources. It's not letting me activate that test, but I can activate this answer key. Now these resources will be a part of the presentation that I've customized, okay? This customized lesson presentation makes lesson delivery an awful lot easier. I would think of this as an alternative to PowerPoint. Many of us use PowerPoint, and you still have PowerPoint slides available to you. Here are your PowerPoints for lesson presentations. But if you want things like answer keys and the phenomena video and virtual simulations, let's say, already embedded into a presentation, because if a PowerPoint, you have to link those up, right? You have to import those into a PowerPoint. Maybe some of those resources won't import at all. Instead, you might consider using this lesson presentation, which allows you to bring any resource into it, okay? Now, if many of us are veteran teachers, and we have resources from outside sources that we want to bring into our presentations, well, at the bottom of any one of these locations is always a teacher added resources location. And when I click on it, there is add content. And when I click on add content, I could find a YouTube video link or a newspaper video link that I want to bring in here, or I could bring in an activity that I like to use in my classroom. Okay, so maybe I want to bring in, see if I can find something pretty easy to bring in here. How about this mitten activity? I'm going to add this to my presentation. And now this has been brought into my resource folder for Inspire Science. And now I could choose to assign it, or I could make it a part of my presentation. And that presentation tool that we saw earlier now will include that mitten activity as a possible option. So here's that mitten activity. I'm going to activate it. And you know what? I want to bring this to the front of the lesson now because it's my favorite activity. I use it every year. McGraw Hill knows nothing about it. It's my activity. I brought it into the Inspire Science experience. And now I can put it in the presentation where I want it to be. Front and center at the beginning of the lesson, ahead of everything, including those answer keys we activated just a few minutes ago. So I'm just bringing it all the way to the front, right here to the beginning. Okay, so once something is activated, it can be brought right into that experience, right to the front. Here's that mitten problem, that investigation that I brought in from an outside source. It existed on my computer a few moments ago. Now it's a part of my teacher resources. And Inspire Science can be now a combination of everything McGraw Hill has created for you to teach this lesson and everything you created by adding the teacher added resources. So resources we've seen at the unit level. We've seen resources to help us at the module level, including here, as we see at the module level, a pre-made module test, okay? We have a pre-made module test for each and every module, and it can be assigned right here. We'll get to assigning here in just a little bit. So resources found right here at the module level. You also have a claim, evidence, and reasoning template here. Now, every module has claim, evidence, reasoning at the beginning. Now, I find some teachers teach claim, evidence, reasoning or use claim, evidence, reasoning in their class, and others do not. Okay, so if you are a claim, evidence, and reasoning user, know that we also have a template here. So if I go to program resources, if I go to course planning, which is my first file folder here, and I scroll down here, I'm going to see, well, I thought it was here. How about professional planning? There's a template here, and I thought that was where it's at. Give me one moment here, and let me see if I can find that template for us. I'm gonna go into classifications and states of matter. Let's see if it's in our planning resources here. Nope. Well, I'll find it here before too long. It's a template, a blank template for claim, evidence, and reasoning. Now, you can find blank templates if you Google, and you'll find hundreds of blank templates. And every teacher uses a different template for claim, evidence, and reasoning. But we have our own unique one that we put into the program, and you could use it at each and every module. When we get into the lesson, there's that focus question. There is, again, the 3 dimensions integrated. And there are labs and investigations along the way, okay? Along with PhET simulations. Now, how do I find these experiences quickly and easily? Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look. I go back into my teacher experience. Now, we've explored resources found at the unit level, okay? We have a set of file folders for the unit level. We've explored resources found at the module level. Here we've been, and here we have a whole set of file folders at the module level. Let's take a look at resources now at the lesson level. So if I were to go to lesson 1, composition of matter, I have a whole set of resources here. Now, one of my resources will be my lesson library. And here will be my virtual labs and investigations. Okay, here's where I'm going to find my virtual labs and investigations. That's one way to find them, is in the lesson library. Now, McGraw Hill has a suite of virtual labs and investigations, separate and distinct from each other. Another way to find them is to go to resources. So if you're planning daily, how you find resources quickly and easily is up to you. And you have 2 different ways, the course view and the resources view. The resources view is a filtering tool. How would I like to filter to find what I'm looking for? I'm looking for a virtual lab. So let me type in virtual. I have 124 of those experiences, okay? How else would I like to filter? Well, let me find a virtual lab, let's say for Unit 2 on energy. Now I'm down to 28. So I put in a keyword, and then I put in a location of the unit I wanted support for. Maybe it's thermal energy that I want support for. So I'm going down to the module level. Now I'm down to 4. See what we're doing here? We're filtering down to find what we're looking for. And here I have a a virtual investigation entitled Thermal Energy. I've got a worksheet that supports that, that virtual lab. So every one of these will have a supporting worksheet, so you don't have to create your own. So day in and day out for lesson planning, that comes pretty handy. And so I'm filtering down to find what I'm looking for. If I type in virtual and click enter, I'm down to 124 again. I can also filter by resource type. And so maybe I want to just look at the virtual labs themselves. I don't want to see the worksheets that support them. I just want to see the virtual labs. Looks like we have 58 virtual labs if I'm a physical science inspired science teacher. That's a lot of virtual labs to choose from. And maybe from here, now I want to look at the unit. How about virtual labs on waves, unit 3? I have 10 related to waves. So I can filter by keyword search, location, and by location, I mean the unit module that I want support for. And then I can even drill down even further and look by resource type to find the specific virtual labs that I want support for in any given day. Okay. The other way to find, or the other resource here is PhET simulations. So what if I type in PhET? Filter by PhET. I have 145 PhET simulations. Now, some of these, like the virtual labs, are print PDFs that support the PhET simulation. So not all of these are virtual labs. If we wanted to filter out those PDFs, I would go here and click web link. And when I do, it's filtered out all the PDFs and it says I have 99 PhET simulations. So 99 PhET simulations in addition to the 58 virtual simulations available to me. That's a lot of virtual experiences in Inspire Science for Physical Science. Now, biology will be a little bit different. Chemistry will be a little bit different. Physics will be a little bit different. But we're in physical science and that's how many I have. And from here, if I want to filter to see what experiences are just for forces in motion, I could drill down just to those, okay? Unit forces of motion. So the resources tool is a filtering tool. It allows me to filter down to find what I'm looking for by keyword search, by location, let's say unit and module, and I could even break it down and go down to in a lesson and find those specific resources. And then maybe I want to add in a keyword search from here. So however you want to filter, in what order you want to filter, that's what the resources search is there for you. The course view is that digital filing cabinet. And again, those virtual experiences that we saw will be found down here in the lesson library. So I've got a time to chat here. What's a best practice that you do when using virtual labs and simulations? How do you use them in your classroom? Do you do them together? Do you assign them remotely and have students do it out of class? How do you use virtual labs and simulations in your classroom? Go ahead and put it in the chat and just share some ideas with the others on the webinar. Anything that you'd like to share? Have you used them at all? And which ones do you like most? Virtual labs or PhET? Anything that you'd like to share? Remember, McGraw Hill has both virtual labs and PhET simulations. Any thoughts in PhET? I think some of you are writing right now. Virtual labs. Hala likes virtual labs. Very good. 58 of them. Any thoughts and best practices on how you use them? How do you like to use them? I tend to share videos on our Google Classroom. Very good, Diana. Diana, share with me. Has that worked really well for you? Let me know how that's worked, Diana. Mostly assign them, sometimes we do them together. Yeah, sometimes it helps to do them together, depending on the virtual lab. We've got another virtual labs, PhET simulations. Diana likes PhET simulations. Okay, very good. So you have both of them to choose from with Inspire Science. I would like to share my students an experiment in virtual lab to be done in class. Okay, very good. Thank you. I would like great contributions. Share a video and then practice together. Oh, I like that. Share a video and then we come back and practice together. It does work very good as they tend to search more on the topic. Okay. So yeah, when you maybe assign them virtually, they do some research on their own to support that PhET simulations. Depends on the lesson and the environment and the students, but mainly both. Very good. Thank you, Ruba. Appreciate that contribution. So you have flexibility when assigning virtual labs, some virtual students so they can discover before I explain class. Very good. And Rasha, thank you for sharing that. And if it were me, I think that's how I would do it. Okay, assign the link. Mane says she assigns the link through Google Classroom, and then students complete the analysis questions and lab report. Very good. I think I would assign them remotely. That's just me. There's a million different ways to successfully implement a science class. I think I would assign them remotely and give them time to explore and maybe do a little Google search related to the topic and just feel the comfort of not having the time constraint and really dig into the investigation. But I can see also benefits of doing it together. Or maybe you have them do it remotely and then come back and do that experience together. Or you might say, hey, I want you to do this virtual lab and investigation remotely. I've assigned it to you. You're going to find it on your student experience. And I want you to think of two things or two questions you have coming into class. Things that you're curious about, things that you don't understand, things that you want clarification on. And so give them an ask. So they come in ready for that one or two things coming into class. That's another option for doing virtual labs and simulations. Thank you, everyone. Great contributions. Virtual labs and simulations, and there's a bunch of them in Inspire Science. The quantity, quality, and variety of those experiences in high school Inspire Science is a unique thing for Inspire Science. There aren't as many in other programs. So really start using them. I would suggest you start using them and maximize them because there's a lot of them to choose from. It gives you a lot of choice. This is another unique thing with Inspire Science, and that is the interactive student edition. It's a unique feature of Inspire Science. And I think it's critical for daily lesson planning and lesson delivery. It's critical. If you haven't started using this tool, I think you need to start using it. So what do I mean by it? There's a student edition in print. That's the way we learned in class. Most of us had a book in front of us. But there's also the student edition digitally. And this student edition is a little bit more interactive. So embedded within the student edition are videos and interactives and tools that students can use. There's audio so they can have the page read to them. There's images that can be manipulated, okay? All these things are found in this interactive student textbook. And it's something that really needs to be unlocked. So let's take a look at it. Let's take a deeper dive into this interactive student textbook. Now, there's two places where that interactive student textbook exists, or the student textbook exists. If I go to Program Resources, right here in my course view, it's one of my top locations here, and I go down here to Learning Resources, I'm going to see my student book. Here's my interactive student book. Now, if I open it up here, let me go ahead and open it up. And remember this tool, opening up another window. It's a really cool tool. I use it every day. Let me open it up another window. Now it's opening up another window. I can close that original window. So here it is. I have my digital book, my student book. It has audio for the students, okay? And the students have access to this as well. I have the ability as a student to have audio. I can highlight and annotate this book as you've seen here. How do those highlights and annotations get there? Well, let's take a look at how those highlights and annotations get there. I'm scrolling through the pages here by clicking on this arrow. And if I want to highlight in a section, I just click and drag on that section. And now I can have that section read to me. I could highlight this section as a student. In order to remember why I'm highlighting it, maybe I'm going to make a little note here. Ask teacher if this will be on the test. And now I've got a highlighted and annotated page. How do I know I have a note there for me as a student? That little red dotted line lets me know I have a note there. With this blue highlighting, it's hard to see. So let's do that again. If I make a little note here, just a note, no highlighting, I'm just gonna make a little note. Now you can see that little red dotted line letting me know I have an annotation. And if I go there, click on it later, I can see my note. All of these get saved for students. So if I come up here to the top this little icon at the top as a student, I can go directly to my highlights. I can go directly to my annotations, and I can go directly to my bookmarks. And all of these are hyperlinks. So wherever students are at, they can go directly to those locations where they have highlighted, annotated, make bookmarks. It makes studying for a test, it makes being successful going into a test so much easier. And as a teacher, you have the ability to see these highlights if you want to see them, okay? So I'll show you how to do that here in just a second. So one place to find the student edition is right here. Students have it on their student side anytime, anywhere. Now, the alternative version of that student book, those little segments, the interactive book that I want to mention, that I mentioned earlier, is found at the module and lesson level. So let's go into a lesson. How about composition of matter, lesson 1? And if I go into composition of matter, I have these file folders. That's what I call these horizontal lines, digital file folders, because I can open them up and I have activities, just kind of like file folders in a physical filing cabinet. And if I go to my learning resources, I have tools here. But if I go past that and go into the lesson plan itself, which is the 5E lesson model, what I'll find here in Explore and Explain and Engage are lesson snippets. I like to call them chunks of content that I could choose to assign. Instead of assigning the entire lesson and telling students to read pages 54 to 64 or to 70, that's a lot of pages. Maybe you just want to assign a specific chunk of content. Let's take a look at this segment, or chunk, I like to call it, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to open this up. There are 3 pages in this specific segment. Okay, we're in page 1, and as I scroll down, looks like I've got an image here. Okay, go to page 2, I've got a little bit more narrative. Let's take a look and see what else we have here. It says drag the slider to settle the suspension. So I have a little interactive embedded in here. I'm manipulating this with my cursor now. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, there's it all settled at the bottom, and there it is within the solution. And as I scroll down here, I've got some other things that I can unlock, short answers. Okay, as I scroll down here, what else? Any more interactives? No, not on that page. I can highlight and annotate this page just like we did the regular ebook. I could have this read to me just like we did the regular ebook. And you know what? This makes a perfect homework assignment. It's a little segment that is perfect for homework. So instead of sending the entire lesson, maybe it's just this specific section that I want to send. The same is true with any segment here. So let's say I wanted to do this launch lesson segment. Let's take a quick look at it. Now, embedded within these segments, you'll find videos, you'll find virtual experiences, you'll find little interactives. Now we're in the launch lesson engage section. Let's see what this has. This has 3 pages. We're in page 1 of 3. And looks like my internet's getting kind of slow. There it is. Okay. We've got an image here, got a second page. I've got a nice little homework assignment because it's what I want to know, or what I know, what I want to know. And it has a focus question down here. So there's opportunities for response embedded within these little snippets or segments or chunks. And I could choose to assign any of them. To assign an activity, I just click on the assign button. I click on the assign button. I choose one I want it to be due, and I'm going to give them specific instructions. Read, highlight in blue areas that you want me to clarify in class. So this is a specific task that I'm giving. Highlight in blue those areas that are confusing to them, that they want some clarity about in class. And I'm going to make this worth 100 points. Do I want to assign it to all of my classes? Down here, I could copy it to all of my classes. So if you teach a period 2, a 3, 4, and 5, I could assign them to all in one fell swoop. You don't want to assign a lesson 5 different times for 5 different classes. You want to be able to assign it once and have it go to all of my classes. So that's what this tool does. I click assign, and now that chunk of content has been assigned to my students as a homework assignment with a specific task of them coming in and highlighting areas that they're confused about. So if I go in as a student, Jim, and go in and see what my teacher assigned to me, I could go into that activity that they just assigned. This is the one that was just assigned. This is my homework for tonight. I see my instructions. Okay, I better highlight in blue areas that I'm confused about. And it may not be the entire lesson. It may be just specific things that are tricky for students. This reading assignment will come up. I decide which areas I'm confused about. You know what? I'm having trouble with this one. So let me go ahead and highlight this. I'm going to highlight that blue. Okay. And so I've completed this assignment. It's pretty much just a reading assignment. And I'm going to submit that back to my teacher. It's been submitted back to my teacher. Now, when I go in as a teacher, I'm able to see that. So I can go into assignments here. I can go to Explore and Explain. I can see one student has completed that. I click on that. I go to that one student, Jim. Here he is. I could view his assignment. Let's take a look at, make sure Jim did what I asked him to do. Let's see if he highlighted in blue. Yep, he sure did. So I better spend some time on this in class. And I'm going to give Jim 100 for doing what I asked him to do. Okay, and I can go from Jim to other students by clicking on the down arrows or the across arrows. So these little chunks of content come in very handy. And honestly, they're not just optional. I think they're critical to the success of your daily implementation of Inspire Science, is utilizing these little chunks of content, these little handy homework assignments. And any resource can be assigned in this way. Okay, a virtual lab or an investigation could be assigned in this way. Just click Assign, and it heads out just like that previous assignment I just sent. So a digital ebook, and embedded within that ebook are the interactives, the videos. A lot of teachers ask me, and you might have thought this. Let me go into my ebook. Were the videos? In a lot of programs, you see videos as separate assets, right? And you might be looking in the lesson library. Is that where the videos are? I don't see any videos here. My previous program had videos that I could assign. All of our videos are embedded within these ebooks. And so that's why it becomes even more critical to use these little snippets or chunks, because the videos are in there, and cool videos, things that make science come alive for our students, are found in these little chunks of content that we could choose to assign here. If we wanted to just project these in class, we could do that as well. So we don't have to. Here's another lesson, a different lesson. I've got different chunks here. We don't have to assign it. We could project it. But if you're wondering to know where the videos are and the interactives are, they're within that interactive ebook experience themselves. Critical to the success of Inspire Science day in and day out. So my question to you in the chat: how can you see yourself using these lesson chunks or segments? Go ahead and share it on the chat. And if you have used them, how have you used them? These little lesson chunks or segments, have you used them or have you not? And if you have used them, share best practice. Or in what way have you used them? Have you used them through Google? Have you used them for homework? Have you, how have you assigned them? I can see themselves using them as assignments. Thank you, Sally. Very good. They make perfect assignments. That's exactly what they're there for, especially if there's areas that you think maybe just need a little bit more of support at home after you talk about it. Or how about flipping your classroom? Assign that before you're going to go over it. How about that as an idea? Okay. Segments and assignments. Thank you, Dina. So if I were teaching this, I might flip the classroom and assign it before I'm going to go at it. So at least they've read it. Maybe I see in blue areas that they're confused about. And then when we go over in class, it's a more successful lesson. I can see them using homework or class assignments. Yeah, classwork or homework assignments. Either way, works perfectly. And so you can see how the ebook and the digital experience research and prepare students for the lesson. Very good. Thank you, Sally. Yeah, that's how I would use it. I would use it before the lesson. And that's just me. Again, there's a There's a lot of different ways to successfully implement a lesson. If it were me, I might assign those before I go in it. And so students are a little bit more prepared and aware of what we're going to talk about in class. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to continue on here because we've got a few things that I'm going to share with you that we haven't dug in too much in the past. Science Notebook and Reading Essentials. Where are those found? Okay, and how do those support you? These are tools that support physical science and biology. The Science Notebook supports every high school title with your chemistry, physics. So what is that tool? Let's go online and find out. I'm in my teacher experience again. So let me just go to the dashboard screen just so we can orient ourselves. And if I go into my course view, I have a Science Notebook tool. It's found in each and every lesson, and it's found here in Learning Resources. The Cornell notes, as you know, is the main idea on the left. Keep it very clean, just the main ideas. Indent and put the supporting details. So for every single day of instruction, your students have this tool to help them effectively take notes. Many of you might print this out and make copies, have it on students' desks for every single lesson. Others of you might decide to assign this and have this assigned to students. I want you to complete and print for test prep. And I'm going to make this worth 100 points. And you know what? I want them to send me the completed version back just to make sure they did it. So I want them to complete it and then send them back to me. If you want students to complete it and send it back to you, you always have to click this box. I click assign, and now that Science Notebook has been sent out to my student. The Reading Essentials is a separate tool. It's the textbook written below grade level, 2 to 3 grade levels below the textbook. It also has opportunities for response and interaction in the margins. So you have 2 companion pieces for biology and physical science, and the Science Notebook is found for each and every content area, okay? These are companion pieces with the program. As I scroll through here, differentiation for students approaching level, on level, beyond level. Do not forget in your teacher's edition, EL support. It's for English language support. And I think a lot of teachers overlook this. You know, I don't have a lot of English language learners in my classroom, so I don't need to look at this purple EL box. That's a mistake. I think this EL box is critical to lesson success because it will have tips, strategies, and suggestions for all students that are struggling. So look at these. I encourage you to look at these boxes and see if there's a strategy that you think might be helpful for your students in your classroom. They're shaded purple and they're found in the teacher's edition. As the differentiated instruction boxes are typically blue. Here's that Reading Essentials we saw earlier. The lower level read of the textbook can be assigned just like the Science Notebook we saw earlier. And then when we get to the end of the lesson, we have this thing called LearnSmart. And this LearnSmart is what I want to spend the remainder of our time talking about. And it's something maybe you haven't looked at yet. At least I find a lot of teachers don't really get into this as early as they probably should. LearnSmart is an adaptive, personalized learning tool. What do I mean by adaptive? I like to use the analogies of Netflix and Amazon. Those are adaptive too. And the more you go to those sites, the more they're getting to know you a little bit better. Your likes, your dislikes, your preferences, and they're customizing an experience that is exclusive to you. That's exactly what LearnSmart is doing, except it's getting to know what students know and what they don't know. And it's prescribing a pathway to mastery. It starts with a SmartBook. It's your regular student book, except it comes pre-highlighted with the core ideas. All along the way, it's going to ask students to answer questions. So it's assessing students more often than you have time to. And based on student responses, it's customizing a pathway to success for your students. For teachers, you could generate reports to see on students' most challenging objectives. So let's take a look at LearnSmart. Where is it located and how to implement it? So LearnSmart is found in a couple locations. Here I am in my lesson folders. I'm in Properties of Matter. And if I go to Learning Resources, I have a LearnSmart box right here. Do not assign LearnSmart here. If you assign it here, There will be too many questions to answer. It will be too large of an assignment. And I know this is a mistake you probably made if you've used it. You probably have signed it here. Too much of an assignment. Let me show you how to assign it in a more successful way. And this is critical to, I think, maximizing the potential of Inspire Science. Go to assignments here. And when you go to assignments, I want you to go to add assignments here at the top. Now, I could add assignments like an essay assignment where they have to submit something back to me, a paper, a document, something here. I could do that. I could assign a test here. This is just another way of assigning a test. But what I want to go to here is SmartBook 2.0. I'm going to click on it. So first thing it's going to ask you, is this a new assignment or a review assignment? This is going to be a new assignment. Okay. What unit do I want to be a part of this assignment? How about matter, unit 4? Okay. I'm going to click continue. So now we're going to narrow our focus. Okay. We have the entire unit. We don't want the student to get an assignment with 213 concepts. That's way too many. And have it take them 256 to 383 minutes. That's way too long. That's too much for a student. We want to narrow the focus. So I want to get rid of module 14. I'm going to get rid of module 16 and 17. Now we only have module 15. We're down to a much smaller focus, right? Now this is getting a little bit manageable. Now I could narrow the focus by clicking on this scope over here at the right and reduce the focus here. But I'm going to drill even further, and that's what I would encourage you to do. So I wouldn't leave it right here at the module. That's still too many. Drill down even a little further. So now I'm at the lesson level. Do I want composition of matter or lesson 2 properties of matter? I want properties of matter. Okay, so I have lesson 2. Notice how it continues to narrow down the scope and time it's going to take students. You know what, for me, I think 28 to 41 minutes is still too long. Now I could narrow down the scope here again. I could always do that. Or I could drill down even further within this lesson. So within this lesson, you know what? I just want to make sure students understand physical properties. That's it. I want to just make sure, because that's what I'm covering tomorrow. And I want to make sure, or maybe I covered it today and I want to use this as a refresher. We'll talk about lesson suggested uses in just a moment. But I just want to cover physical properties. But you know what? If I want, and it's going to take 6 to 9 minutes for this assignment, 5 concepts, that's a little bit more manageable. That's what I would prefer to be a homework assignment. And maybe I pair this with one of those chunks of content that we saw just a little bit ago. So a chunk of content from the book, and then with this LearnSmart assignment as a paired assignment. So if I wanted to drill down even further into a very specific topic under properties of matter, physical properties, I could do that as well. But I'm just going to keep it right here. Physical properties, 5 concepts. It's going to take 6 to 9 minutes. Okay. I click continue. Now we're going to see a screen that looks pretty similar to what we've seen before. I'm going to say SmartBook assignment. That's what I'm going to call it. When do I want it to be due? I want it to be due on Wednesday. I'm going to make it worth 100 points. And do I want all of my classes to get it? Absolutely. I don't want to assign this 5 different times. Do I want to share it with Google Classroom? If you're a Google Classroom user, you can share it right here. And you can pretty much do that with every assignment. Just share it with Google Classroom. And I'm going to click assign. And now that has been sent to my students. So I've got a SmartBook assignment. I've got a notebook. I've got a little chunk of content. I've got several things waiting for my student. So what do they see? Let's go back in as a student. I'm going to go in as Jim. And I'm going to go into Jim's dashboard screen. Now, Jim has an assignment that looks pretty similar to mine. He has his ebook here. We've already taken a look at that, the teacher side. He has his science notebook and reading essentials. So you don't have to assign these things. Students already have these and can access them. I like to say, how many times have you handed out something on Monday, students lose it on Tuesday, and they're asking for replacement on Wednesday, or maybe they even lose it Monday afternoon. Students can always print out copies of their own because they have a course view as well. And if I'm in as Jim, I could go into a specific module and lesson, and I have a set of file folders here with all of my resources and activities, okay? And my learning resources like my science notebook and the reading essentials for this specific lesson. So, you know, as a teacher, I could say, hey, Jim, you have this reading essentials. I know you lost it. Just go into lesson on working machines and go print out yourself another copy. You don't need one for me, okay? But let's get back to that LearnSmart assignment. I'm going to find it as a student here in assignments. And as a student, I'm going to see it right here, SmartBook, like I'm going to see all of my assignments. Now, when I go in as Jim as a student, I'm going to answer, it's going to tell me when is it due, how long it's about to take me. It's going to take me approximately, and about how many concepts it's going to cover. Now, as a student, tell students, if you haven't used this, give students some guidance. They can go directly into reading, or they can go directly into questions. It's really up to them. Maybe they read the lesson in the print student book, or maybe they read it in the reading essentials. They're ready to go right to questions. Or maybe they haven't read the lesson yet, and this will be the first time reading it. So then, if that case, I'm going to go start with reading. Now, I have an experience that looks just like the book, except this experience comes pre-highlighted. It really directs students' eyes on the really core pieces to this assignment. I can still have this read to me, just like in the regular ebook. Okay, I can still navigate to different locations in the book by clicking on this icon, but it focused students' attention on the main ideas. And when they feel like they're ready, they can go to 2 questions. Okay, now when I go to questions, let's take a look at what it says here. Make progress by completing concepts. The number of questions will vary depending upon your individual needs. So depending upon whether you get questions right or wrong, as a student, it will recycle certain questions. Like, so the algorithm, the program will determine, yeah, I think they need to see this again. So let's bring them another question just to make sure they understood this. And if you get it right a couple of times, maybe you don't see it again. So how many questions you get depend on the individual. Let's see what the second thing says. It's okay to get questions wrong. You will still earn 100% if you complete all the concepts by the due date. So this LearnSmart assignment is complete or not complete. This is not an assessment. It is not something you send as a module test or for scoring purposes. This is a study tool. If they complete it, they get 100%. It's just a study tool, not an assessment tool. The last thing it says is submit your answers by selecting your confidence level. This will not affect your grade. The confidence level tells students, hey, it doesn't matter what confidence. Be honest with your confidence level. If you don't know it, put low confidence. If you really think you know it, put high confidence. If you're somewhere in between, put medium confidence. It doesn't affect your score. It doesn't affect your grade. Just be honest. You'll get the best experience possible. That's important to tell students because sometimes you never know what students are thinking going into a question. Okay, I got it. So I'm going to see different types of questions here. Sometimes it's check all that apply. Sometimes it's true, false. Sometimes it's matching. Sometimes students have to generate an answer. Any characteristic of material that you can observe without changing the identity of the subject is a physical property. I'm going to put physical. And I'm going to put medium confidence. Oh, I got that right. Okay, and it'll tell me I got it right. I can go to next question here. Now I'm going to, and this was a multiple choice. I'm going to try to get some wrong here. Choose the list below to that includes physical properties only. So I'm going to put, and I'm going to put confidence. Okay, I got that right. Let me just do some of these randomly here really fast, just for the sake of time. Incorrect. Incorrect. Now notice what it does for students. Before moving on, you must review this question. So students can't just go in here willy-nilly and start answering questions just to get through this. It will stop them. And it's tracking their progress up here on the right. Right now, I have 0 of 5 concepts completed. So the program has, it's saying, I haven't really demonstrated mastery on any of the 5 concepts yet. And so I have to review this resource before I can go back. So I go down here and I review this resource, and now I've got to read a little bit more, okay? Now I've got to read a little bit more. And when I think I'm ready again, I can go back into questions. Okay. So all along the way, LearnSmart is collecting data about what students know and what they don't know. And as a teacher, I can pull in some reports and I can see where students' most challenging objectives are. I can see how long they've spent on LearnSmart, what they, how they're performing relative to their classmates. I can pull a metacognitive report. Now, where am I going to find that reporting data? Let's take a look as a teacher. I'm in as a teacher, and I go to LearnSmart assignment. Now, normally, as a student, I would go, or to see student performance, I would go right here. You know, I'd go to this kebab menu. But to see the LearnSmart reports, I go up here to this top kebab. Again, I call the stacked dots the kebab menu. I click on it, and I'll be able to view assignment report right here for all of my students. So when you want to see that report that we just looked at on the PowerPoint screen, this one right here, and see how students are performing and see all this data, you want to go to this top section right here and click View Assignment Report. And when I click on View Assignment Report, I'll be able to see how students have performed, how my learners are progressing, who's finished this, who is not, where students are strong and where they're weak, and what their most challenging objectives are. I'll be able to see all of those things. Here are some of the assigned concepts. I'll be able to see all the objectives. I can even go into specific students. Maybe I just want to see Jim's work. I could see Jim's specific confidence level, how Jim has performed on this specific assignment. Okay, this is LearnSmart with SmartBook. It's an underutilized feature, but it's critical to success with Inspire Science. And you can take a look at this infographic. Our LearnSmart and SmartBook platform has been around for a while now. It's been in our AP and college classrooms for more than a few years. And you can see how students perform with LearnSmart and without LearnSmart. It is a performance improver. I like to call it kind of a study coach in your pocket. And who can use a study coach in their pocket? And every student has access to this. Now, how do I assign it again? What's the best practice for assigning this? Let's take a look. I'm going to go back to my exit report. I'm going to go back in as a teacher. Do not assign it at the lesson level. You'll find LearnSmart in different locations. So here I am in a lesson folder. Here is LearnSmart down here. Do not assign it here. In fact, I've told our academic design team to remove it because I think it causes more trouble than it's worth to even be here. Because if you were to assign this, students would get too many concepts and they'll never finish. And that's what would happen here. Do not assign it there. You'll find it here at the module level. Okay? You'll see it in the module folder, right under Learning Resources. Okay, there's LearnSmart again. Definitely don't assign it here. There are going to be even more resources. To assign it with success, go to Assignments, Add Assignment, go to SmartBook, and then drill down to that area that you want support for. I want to click New Assignment. I'm going to choose, let's just do this one more time together. I'm going to choose Unit 2 Energy. I'm going to click Continue. These are too many concepts. It's going to take students too long. I just want, how about thermal energy to be a part of this? Module 5. So this is how large of an assignment it would be if I assigned it from the module level. That's too long. Students will get frustrated. Let me drill down even further into conduction, convection, and radiation. Let me activate just that lesson. Now we're getting a little bit closer, aren't we? And you know what? If it were me, I would drill down even further. And I just want to make sure students understand conduction. I click Continue. Now from here, it looks like most any other assignment. It'll ask me what I want to name it. I'm going to call this Conduction SmartBook. When do I want it to be due? I want it to be due tomorrow. I want to make this worth 100 points. and I click assign. And now I have that SmartBook Conduction SmartBook assignment waiting for my students. Now, how might I use LearnSmart? By the way, LearnSmart could not be easier to implement. Just assign it, just like you saw me assign it, and then take a look at student performance. And students get the benefit of reading and being asked questions. And if they miss it wrong or get an answer wrong, they have to go in and read some more. So it's a study tool for them that you've assigned them. You've assigned them a study tool. Now, teachers use LearnSmart in different ways. And there's some things to consider. And there's no right or wrong way to use LearnSmart. Some teachers use the flipped model. What is that? That means I assign that lesson. Let's say in that last example, conduction, convection, or radiation. I'm going to assign this before I'm going to go into it. So maybe a couple days before I'm going to go into that content, I'm assigning this to my students online. So now they've read the assignment, they've answered questions, they've had to go back and read if they got the questions wrong. Now they have kind of an idea of the core ideas. They've already read. And that will free up class time for just clarifying some things that are confusing, maybe going over some weaknesses. Maybe you assign one of those segments or chunks, as I call them, of student book, because those have videos. LearnSmart won't have videos. Those have videos. And then maybe you follow it up with a LearnSmart assignment. So you're flipping with two different resources. And then we experience it in class together. And that will free up class time for instruction. A lot of teachers use LearnSmart in that way. Some teachers use it concurrently. What do I mean by that? I'm a biology teacher. I'm going into structure and functions of organelles today. And guys, we just covered structures and functions of organelles today. Waiting for you tonight as homework is a SmartBook LearnSmart assignment on structures and functions of organelles. Let's see how much you've learned and remember. So we're doing it in tandem. I go over it in class just to make sure they understood. They get a little bit of reinforcement with LearnSmart that night. Perfectly fine way of using LearnSmart. Other teachers use it as a study tool. So as the test approaches, to make sure students remember everything, or maybe to give you an idea of what students didn't understand along the way. Maybe you assign them some content in LearnSmart, and now you can see their most challenging objectives and say, hey, we've got a test next week, and I just assigned that LearnSmart assignment. And I can tell based on your performance, we need to spend a little bit more time on conduction, convection, and radiation based on how you did. So let's spend a little bit of time clarifying some stuff. Any one of these models is fine. Anyone, and all three of them are fine. However you want to implement LearnSmart is fine. Just do it. It's critical to success of your students. So I have a question here. Have you used LearnSmart or SmartBook yet? And if you have, what's the best practice? If you have not, how can you see yourself using it? Go ahead and tell me in the chat. I saw a question there as I went to chat. Why can I assign it to the lesson level? I have a question. Why? And this is from Arnie, maybe? I made my eyes a little bit. Arnie, why can I say you can assign it to the lesson level. But what happens is students will get too many concepts in the lesson level. The lesson level is better than the module level, but even at the lesson level, I think there are too many concepts. I have found that students will get a little bit frustrated. They'll never complete it or have a hard time completing it because it'll take too much time. Instead, make it assign it, narrow down the focus and the scope. So that's a little bit more manageable. Anybody else here? Any other questions about LearnSmart and SmartBook? Yes, it's self-learning. It helps to become more confident and enjoy it. Absolutely. I haven't used it yet, Dinah said, but surely we'll use it before tests. Excellent. Can you please also highlight lesson planning and pacing options and best practices? Okay, I'll do that here in just a second, Nasser, as much as I can, because I've got another presentation here in just a little bit. Very good. Thank you all. Let me go ahead and wrap up here. And at the end of the module, you have some experiences that you could choose to make a part of your lesson, okay? Whether it be this study guide, this is at the end of the module, revisiting claim evidence and reasoning, using this data analysis lab, analyzing and interpreting data is a science and engineering practice. Students need practice in order to be proficient at it. Every module ends with a data analysis lab. And if I go to the next thing, that performance task. And then finally, the variety of assessments you have available to you. Okay? All of those assessments are found in our assessment engine. And we won't have time to go this in great detail, but we can do that, either send that to you either via video or another webinar, just to focus in on assessment if you think it will be helpful. So lesson planning. There's no one way to implement an Inspire Science lesson. There are tools that you have to choose a pathway that works for you. But there are some lesson planning tools I want to make you aware of, okay? So just like any other, you guys have gone and got an education on teaching. You've have specialized knowledge in your specific discipline. And everybody on this call may teach a lesson just a little bit differently. But there are some things that I want to make you aware of, and it's the organization of finding the resources and planning resources available to you. So the first thing I want to go to is the program resources location. It's a very top location. And if I go here, I have some course planning resources. Okay? And in course planning resources, and they're only found here, I have some things like pacing. Okay, so here it's saying it outlines the pacing of the program, whether you teach block or regular, let's say 45-minute, 50-minute periods. And as you can see, on average, each lesson takes about a day. Each lesson is designed to take about a day. Now, there are some, like this velocity and momentum lesson, takes 2 days. Like forces, this is going to take 2 days. And this is just as prescribed by our academic design team. Now, as you know, depending upon how you want to implement them, some might take a little bit shorter, some might take a little bit longer. It's really depends on what resources you choose to bring into the lesson. For planning purposes, it's helpful to have a materials list. So here in the program resources is a materials list. So all of the resources needed for each and every activity, hands-on activity in Inspire Science are listed here. It's a pretty big document. But if you're wanting to ask yourself, do I have the resources to be able to do this quick investigation? Do I have tape, a toy car, stopwatch, and a meter stick? Yep, I have those things. So I can do that quick investigation. So it'll tell you what you need to do each and every one of those resources. That's a resource that's helpful for planning purposes. If I'm looking to differentiate instructional instruction is found in the Teacher's Edition. You also find other support tools here for students that are gifted and talented, or migrant students, diverse learners. Basically, tips, strategies, and suggestions for lesson success. Other planning and underutilized resources for planning are these professional learning resources. So here, if you haven't used the 5E lesson model, and it's new to you, it's pretty self-explanatory, honestly, starting with engage, some sort of a hook. Evaluate is the last E, and that's some sort of an assessment. Here's some videos that go over the 5E lesson model. Strategies for implementing 3D instruction. Now, and some of these are video libraries. So if you want to get students talking, part of Inspire Science, the idea is get students engaging in scientific discourse, and sometimes that takes a strategy to do that. Take a look at some of these strategy videos, whether it be argumentation lines. So even though you thought these might have been one video, many of these, if you open them up, there are a library of videos. And these formative assessment strategies are all about scientific discourse and getting students to communicate more in your science classroom. Okay, so lesson planning, pacing. If I go into a Teacher's Edition, at the beginning of the module, I'm also going to see some pacing support there. So if I go into module 3 and open up my Teacher's Edition, don't forget the module planning and pacing support that you'll find at the beginning of a module. So if I go into a beginning of the module, here I'm in module 4, work and energy. Here are my performance expectations with that color coding. And if I go to here, the planner, this is my suggested pacing for these lessons. Okay, about 135 minutes for this lesson, 135 for this, about 90 minutes for this lesson, and the experiences that I can find in each and every lesson. Okay, so every module in the Teacher's Edition proceeds with these activities. Now, we've been on for a little while now, and I hope I've dug a little bit deeper in some areas that you may not have had a chance to use or maybe have underutilized. Now, I have just a few minutes to answer a few questions. I apologize. I have another sales presentation here in about 10 minutes that I have to get on, but I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Ahmad, did you see any questions that I may have missed? Okay, Dina thinks she takes a little bit longer in her pacing. And Artie, hopefully I've pronounced that right, Artie, takes a little bit longer too. That's what I love about McGraw Hill. They help students to learn on themselves. We need to guide them only. I agree with that, Artie. I completely agree with that. And so what you're going to find, I couldn't agree with you more. So what you're going to find in Inspire Science, there's a lot of choice and a lot of options to sort of initiate that exploration, you know, whether it be a quick investigation, you know, design your own lab. Some we haven't looked at up here, you know, let's take a look at this one. Give me just a second. Let me come back up. You know, things like launch labs, quick investigations, design your own labs. Applying practices, those virtual labs and simulations that we saw. So the exact pathway and pacing kind of depends on the experience that you want your students to have in this classroom and what resources you want to bring into your lesson. You're probably not going to bring all of the resources in, but you can pick and select choices that you think will work for you. And based on what what you think would make your students successful for this specific lesson. Any questions? Any other questions about what we've seen? Let me go into the chat here. I need more activities, not only investigation. You need more gamification. Okay. Well, I will pass that thought along to our academic design team and see if we can get more gamification in. Now this program is evolving. So the program that you see now, chances are next year there'll be a few more resources that you didn't have this time. Can you modify a lab report based on my student needs? The answer is yes. Most labs, 90% of the labs are in Word documents. So any lab can be, most labs, 90% of the labs can be modified. They're not in PDFs, most of them are in Word. So yes, they can be modified. Any other questions here? Okay, Hamad, I'm gonna have to get off for another sales presentation that's starting in a few minutes.
Yep.
Thank you all for your time. Thank you for your attention. We're here to help you. If we need to come back and do an entire session on LearnSmart, we could certainly do that. If we want to do an entire assessment on the test generator, we could do that. We're here to help you. We're McGraw Hill Education, and if you adopt us, which you have, we're going to adopt you right back. And so let us know how we could help you. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing so that Hamad and Nasser can wrap up this webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Very useful. Judging by the audience, I mean, we've got 80 participants still in the session, so it was pretty good. We will send the recording and the presentation slides in the follow-up email, along with the certificates that should come through within the next week. And if you have any other ideas, suggestions for the next sessions that we should hold, please send us an email or reply back to the email that you received for this webinar. And we will definitely take your feedback into account. Thank you everyone for joining us. And until next time, have a good evening and we'll see you again.